From Thom Hartmann's Daily Take Substack. Kushner, Ukraine, Saudi Arabia. The conflict of interest story everyone's ignoring. If a Ukraine proposal was shaped to benefit a foreign power tied to Kushner's money, that's not diplomacy. It's corruption. Published December 4th, 2025. The following is a song inspired by this article.
Yeah. They meet behind closed doors, late night in a quiet room, talking about peace like a business, while the bad deals bloom. Suit coat, steady smiles, pen scratching slow, but the truth ain't on the mind, where the people can know. They're sold in the fine print, hidden from the light, pouring money on the table while they swear they're doing right, and the news just rolls on like it's nothing at all. But a country starts breaking when the watchdogs don't bark. Yeah, peace shouldn't pay, but it's sold in the fine print anyway. It used to be a scandal just to take a gift. Now they take a whole store and call it how we live. Folks get tired, shrug their shoulders, turn the channel quick, but the crooks get stronger every time we let it slip. It's sold in the fine print, hidden from the light, pouring money on the table while they swear they're doing right, and the news just rolls on like it's nothing at all. But a country starts breaking when the watchdogs don't bark. Yeah, peace shouldn't pay, but it's sold in the fine print anyway. This ain't left or right, it's wrong in a suit. It's power getting bought with a polished up truth. If we don't raise hell, they'll do it again and again. It's sold in the fine print, hidden from the light, pouring money on the table while they swear they're doing right, and the news just rolls on like it's nothing at all. But a country starts dying when the watchdogs don't bark. Yeah, peace shouldn't pay, but it's sold in the fine print anyway.
I don't know why this wasn't above the fold news all across the country over the past few days, as the details of the, quote, peace plan, and, quote, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff took to Putin this week came out. Kushner, it appears, had added in a provision that would have forced both Ukraine and Russia to take actions that would specifically benefit Saudi Arabia, a country that is paying the presidential son-in-law at least $25 million a year. Can you imagine what the response would have been if George Marshall, while negotiating the 1948 Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe after World War II, had been personally taking millions from, say, Saudi Arabia, and thus inserting a provision ensuring the country would permanently benefit from that peace plan? Given that then President Truman and Marshall were Democrats, it's safe to predict that the GOP would have melted down, but so would have the press. After all, the early 1920s Teapot Dome scandal, one of the most infamous in U.S. presidential history, only involved an oil company bribing the then Secretary of Interior with around $300,000. The brutal kingdom of Saudi Arabia owns agricultural land in many far-flung places, and their alfalfa farms in Arizona to an investment in 400,000 acres in western Ukraine devoted to growing grain for export. The only way to get that grain to the Black Sea, where it can enter world markets, is via barges down the Dnieper River, which cuts across Ukraine. So, as Jed Legume points out over at Popular Info, quote, point 23 of the peace plan that Kushner helped draft fulfills Saudi's policy objective. Russia will not prevent Ukraine from using the Dnieper River for commercial activities, and agreements will be reached on the free transport of grain across the Black Sea, end quote. Which should have provoked a collective, quote, what the hell, end quote, across the planet, and a ring alarm bells in newsrooms from Tokyo to Topeka to Tallinn, but has instead been largely met with a shrug. Quote, of course, end quote, politicians in the press seem to be saying, quote, it's the Trump family. What do you expect, end quote. And indeed, the corruption and self-dealing of the Trumps is breathtakingly world-class, run at a scale beyond anything ever seen in America. Remember when Jimmy Carter almost lost his peanut farm, his only major asset, because he'd put it in a blind trust, and the guy he'd entrusted to run it screwed operations up so badly, leaving the Carters $1 million in debt? Or when St. Ronald Reagan put his small fortune, $700,000, $2 million in today's dollars, in a blind trust and didn't have a clue what was happening with it for the next 8 years? How about when the Bulgarian president gave George W. Bush a puppy and the dog was sent to the National Archives before placement to ensure conformity with the emolument clause of the Constitution? Presidents not taking and keeping gifts or money from foreign governments in compliance with that clause and associated with federal anti-bribery laws has a history that dates back to Andrew Jackson and Abraham Lincoln. But complying with any law has never been a strong suit for the Trump crime family. Donald Trump tried to convince us in his first term that he was complying with the law by calling a press conference where we were treated to huge stacks of paper and manila file folders supposedly representing his complex estate that he was handing off to his kids, but we soon learned it was entirely a scam. Trump was getting checks to sign every 2 weeks in the Oval Office, and all that paper and folders were blank. This second term, he's not even trying. He's extracted millions of dollars from his followers in exchange for his and his wife's so-called digital coins. They're just, quote, collectible, end quote, digital images. The value of those, quote, coins, end quote, has now fallen by 86%, Donald, and 99%, Melania, respectively. And don't get me started on the so-called, quote, Trump phones, end quote, scam. But those are chump change compared to the billions he's accumulated in crypto and the billions being thrown at Trump-based licensed properties being negotiated or built right now in over 20 countries, including India, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, Qatar, Vietnam, Serbia, Romania, Uruguay, and the Maldives. Or the $400 million plane Qatar gave Trump, along with $1 billion Trump-branded resort they're building for him, which were followed by the U.S. giving that country, and only that country, an astonishing NATO-style security guarantee that our soldiers will shed blood to defend that kingdom's potentates. So, it probably shouldn't be a surprise that Jared, after taking $2 billion from the Saudis, along with his $25 million a year fee, would insert a paragraph into the Russia-Ukraine deal that would benefit the Saudi crown prince, who's been his top benefactor. And even more astonishing, that he's serving in this position without any legal authority in violation of federal law. As Judd Legume explains, If he's a private individual, it's a felony crime for him to negotiate with a foreign government. And if he's acting on behalf of our government, he's a, quote, special government employee, end quote, and therefore subject to the emoluments clause. Either way, what he's doing is deeply illegal, as well as apparently deeply corrupt. But where's the press on this? And when will Democrats begin an investigation into it? Inquiring minds want to know.